So the Transformers Hasbro Fan Vote has ended. They have not revealed yet what the winners are, but all we know is it's done. Hasbro does have a winner, and what they did was they did a little bit of a Q&A on their Facebook and Instagram to answer a few questions. And one of the questions was, aren't Needlenose and Trax brothers? And of course they responded, yep. You get a glimpse of what drove them apart, which leads them to joining the Autobots and Decepticons during the War for Cybertron trilogy. So they're pretty much telling us that if they win, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a glimpse of why they decided to choose each side in the war.
Interesting. Cool.
A second question was, why another Wheeljack figure? We recently got a toy as him. And that was actually something that we kind of talked about too when we were saying, you know, there's a lot of really good Wheeljack toys already. And their answer was actually a really good one, which actually intrigued me, which is Wheeljack is one of the few Autobots whose Cybertronian vehicle alt mode was seen in the 1984 show, in the pilot specifically, Mortal Meets the Eye Part 1, but never got a toy. And I was like, that is true. Wheeljack actually was the very first Transformer we ever see. Like Mortal Meets the Eye Episode 1, the very first Transformer on screen was Wheeljack. And then Bumblebee's the first one to transform. He transforms into his little hovercraft or whatever there. But then Wheeljack transforms into this more boxy kind of almost sea spray looking kind of hovercraft. And then he has like this, he even has this like blast shield and everything. So I'm kind of curious because that's a very iconic image that a lot of people have of Generation 1, is that very first episode with Cybertronian Wheeljack. So if he wins and that's the toy that they'll decide to do, then I have no problem with that. That completely changes everything that I was saying before of, well, we already got a good Wheeljack toy. Well, we never got that one, so I'm totally behind that. And which is interesting because that then harkens back to the title of this series, because War for Cybertron was a Cybertronian pre-Cybertron story. Excuse me, pre-Earth story. So is this kind of confirming that this is going to be the theme of this trilogy? Is it going to be a pre-G1, pre-Earth kind of toy line story? And it's the same thing going to their answer that they did with Needlenose and Trax, talking about them deciding which side to join the war. That's a very, pre-Earth kind of narrative you got over there. Now, the last one they ask is, why does Impactor wear a Decepticon logo? And that's referring to in the teaser trailer that when they were showing all the characters facing off against each other, Impactor has a Decepticon logo on his shoulder. And then they wrote, this is the answer by Hasbro, much like the Bounty Hunter Double Dealer, which also bears an Autobot crest, Impactor wears faction logos which do not align with his true nature as a Transformer. You learn why and how he came to wear the Autobot crest instead of in an untold story in the War for Cybertron trilogy. So I guess in the explanation in this case is he's kind of both sides, but not. The character of Double Dealer really, they're referring to Double Dealer here. That character has different explanations in many different continuities. In the IDW one,
it's complicated.
Yeah, in the IDW universe, it's one. The character of Double Clouder or Dealer in Master Force, which is what that mold was used for in Japan, has a whole other complicated explanation. Same thing with the Marvel Comics, specifically the UK stuff. So that's, and it's funny because Impactor was also a primarily UK character. So they're just pretty much saying, like, well, we'll explain how he ends up here or there, and again, in the untold stories of the War for Cybertron trilogy. So
they're everything.
So they're pretty much saying that, whichever one you're going to pick, and again, like I said before in the previous videos about the voting, whoever we do decide is going to be a primary focus fictionally, story-wise. So they're just kind of confirming that more or less. Like if you pick, Needlenose and Trax, you're going to find out why they decided to become Autobots and Decepticons. If you pick Impactor, you're going to find out why he aligned with that, side of the war. If you pick Wheeljack, then you're going to get a Cybertronian Wheeljack. So it gives you a better idea of, depending on which one wins, this is what's going to happen. So it's pretty cool. I mean, right now, my original vote was Impactor and Mirage because I kind of wanted new toys of both those guys. But I will say I'm a little interested in seeing what that Cybertronian Wheeljack would look like, because that's a very iconic design of a very iconic and important episode in Transformers history, the very first episode, literally the first episode of the first 5 minutes. Yeah. So that's something that'd be really, I'm sure a lot of people would love to have on their shelf, and if they do it very show accurate, that would be really cool.
I think also with this particular one for Wheeljack, the Wheeljack figure, it's almost like Hasbro is kind of jumping the gun before a third-party manufacturer could do it.
Oh yeah, I'm actually surprised.
That's what it seems like. Like,
I'm
hey,
actually
let's let it be known that this is in the pipeline, and if anybody else was trying to do this prior to, it's going to be rendered obsolete by the time our toy comes out, and you know ahead of time.
Yeah, and
if it gets voted in,
you are right, because Bumblebee has had plenty of third-party Cybertronian toys, and of course they did a War for Cybertron Bumblebee, but it was more based on that video game design, less on what he looked like in the '84 cartoon,
right? Where
it was more of a flat flying saucer kind of hovercraft deal. So it'll be interesting to see Wheeljack finally get this treatment, and I'm really curious. It'd be, again, if they do something that's very accurate to More Than Meets the Eye Part 1 with the little blast shield and everything, if somehow they could work that into the toy also, that'd be really cool. I'd really be behind that. It makes me almost want to kind of change my vote,
Yeah.
At the same time, it's, the flip side of it is, do we really need another Spinister? That's the problem, because it's just, the Spinister we got already from the club wasn't terrible, and it's not me even being biased because I had something to do with it. It's literally, how much could you improve that character already? It's a double Target Master that had those color schemes, and you got a double Target Master that had those color schemes. So there's only so much you could do there. Where, again, Impactor or Mirage, really want to get new toys of those guys. Really, really want to get new toys of those. It's just that Wheeljack now has me intrigued.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know. Again, I think what we learned more from all of this is this really, more or less, really confirms this is a pre-G1 story. This is a Cybertronian pre-G1 story. That's what we more or less learned from all of this. So it really is kind of like the video game, even though they said otherwise. It really is War for Cybertron, a pre-Earth story.